Hello legends! So a few days ago, I posted a video about how to control any n8n workflow by using a custom interface. So in the video, I demonstrated that on the right-hand side, we have this n8n workflow that has a bunch of different nodes. And on the left-hand side, we had this interface that I coded up using AI. It's just a HTML page that allowed you to drag and drop files. You can press buttons, you could enter in free text, and basically it was super interactive. And then whatever you sent from the front end, it would just go into this workflow and then be processed by n8n. So I really like this setup because it gives me another way to actually deliver work to my clients. Sometimes they say to me, hey, I have this like customer facing process that I need to automate. I'm really good with n8n. I know that I can introduce AI into processes for customers using this kind of tool. But up until now, I never really had a way to automate front-end customer processes. So with this custom dashboard, for example, here, I built out a claims portal where the customer can come into and then like raise a new claim and kind of get it approved or processed by AI in the background. So really cool idea. I wanted to share it with you guys. And in that video, I also explained very briefly how to build something like this out. So there was two main components. One was actually building out the flow in n8n. And then on top of that flow, you would build out these different screens. So basically that custom UI. And then you would stitch both those things together, the front end website and the back end n8n workflow, by using like a series of wait nodes and also webhooks that are sending these JSON payloads. So the goal for this video is to show you how to do this process from scratch. We're literally going to be building out a brand new n8n workflow. I've got no template ready. This is literally on a blank canvas. We'll then be going across to ChatGPT to help us design some of the pages. Once we have the pages designed, we'll be going across to a tool called Replit, which is basically an AI coding tool where you can use AI to code up your websites or apps. And you can also host it on Replit straight away. So you don't have to code something up and then kind of go across to these old school platforms like Google Cloud. As a very non-technical person myself, this is the easiest way to kind of push these apps and these websites to be live on the internet. And that's really what we want to be doing, because if we're delivering client work, we do need some way to kind of have these publicly available and accessible to them. So just to refresh our memories, let me quickly give you a look at how this works. I'm just going to start the workflow over here. And then we have this, basically the workflow is in testing mode, so we can actually see the executions as they come in. And that webhook is waiting for events. On my left-hand side, I've got the custom portal that I built out. I'm just going to go into workflow 2. And now I'm going to click on start claims process. And that's going to send across a message to this webhook. And then we're receiving some kind of message back. All this stuff I will explain in just a second, but this is kind of to visually show you what we're going to be building out today. And then I can have some interaction over here. So this wait node is basically waiting for me to interact with the front end. Now I'm just going to upload this ChatGPT generated invoice, and I'll drag it and drop it into here. And when I click upload invoice, it's going to send that invoice into this wait node where it's going to be processed. We're going to analyze the image with an AI step using AI agent to then generate some buttons that we're going to be displaying over here. Okay, so I'm going to pause now because at this stage, you've probably seen the first video. If you haven't, you can go back and watch it. But we understand now that we interact with this workflow at different stages. We press the start button to actually start the workflow. We then have a wait node that's waiting for us to send some information from the website into n8n. We then process it. And then once again, we're kind of waiting with that wait node. So this is a very good time for me to transition across to actually explaining how we're going to be building out these workflows. Use this as a generic explanation for when you want to build out something for yourself. But essentially, we've got a couple of different sections for our workflows. The first section starts with these two green nodes. This is how we start the workflow. So when I just demoed, we had this button that we pressed that said start workflow, and that sent an event across to a webhook, which is this thing over here. This is an inbound webhook, which is going to be receiving an event from the front end, which is our website. And then we have this respond with webhook node that sends to the front end, so to the website, a resume URL. And that resume URL gives us the address of the wait node. And that wait node, like we saw before, it was literally just waiting for us to send some information from the front end. So in our example, we sent a file across to n8n. So this thing was just waiting until that file arrived. So that sequence that I just explained was we start the workflow by pressing a button. We go across to this respond with webhook node. And this respond with webhook node actually sends back the URL that we're going to need to send that file into this wait node. So this wait node technically acts as a webhook as well. And it has a custom address, a custom URL that when we press that button, we say, hey, front end, send this document across to n8n. It's going to know exactly where to land it, and it lands it into here. So that's one important sequence that we need to look at, is basically starting the workflow and getting that resume URL. And then the next sequence we need to look at is basically anytime on the front end we want to make some interactive component like upload a file, press a button, enter free text. That's what we do in between the sections that have a wait node and then a respond to webhook node. So the wait node is essentially like an inbound webhook. It'll be able to receive any information that we send from the website across into here. Once we receive it into here, we'll then process it using AI steps or just, logic processing, which might mean that we want to add some information to a database or, take information out of a database. And then finally, we respond at the end of this little mini sequence with a webhook node. So that's what we see over here. We had a webhook that received the file. And then after we receive the file, we have some logic steps. So we first analyze that file. We use an AI agent step to, analyze that file further. And then we basically use the code node to build a JSON file, which is this bit over here. So that JSON that I was speaking about is the information we're sending across to the front end, which is how we can dynamically show buttons, how we can show responses to the customer who's using the website, which are coming in from n8n. And then this is the sequence that we're mimicking every single time that we want to run some kind of custom action from the website to go across to n8n and then sending some information back. So again, the wait node receives the information. We have some logic in between that node. And then we must respond using a webhook node. And then we have this little blue icon, which is just basically repeating these last three for every interaction that we want to do. So if I zoom out of here, you can see I have that kind of same sequence each and every action. We receive some information, we process it, we respond back. We receive some more information into this wait node, we process it, we respond back. And then basically, as many times as you need to for the actions on the front end. Receive information, you process it, and you respond back. So we're just literally going through these three different nodes on loop until we finish the activities. And then finally, we just end the workflow and this is actually up to you in whichever way you want. So for me, because I was doing a claims process, I just used the Gmail node. I grabbed the user's email from the front end using free text, and then I just inserted into this Gmail node and I sent it across via email. So that's the sequence of events that we're going to be following today. And in today's demo, we're going to be building everything from scratch. So I don't actually have a template that I'm going to be starting with. I'm going to be literally building from a blank canvas in n8n, from a brand new coding environment in Replit. And you're going to see everything done from scratch. It's going to be a relatively basic app. It's going to have one or two actions in it. It's going to upload a file, process the file just like we saw before. And I'll be breaking down the most trickiest parts based on my own experience when I was building this out. So the stuff that I struggled with, to basically show you guys how to do it as well. Okay, so let's start with this part of the tutorial. Actually, there's two ways that you can do this. The first way is that you would build your workflow at a very high level. You just kind of put all the nodes onto the canvas. You wouldn't worry about the execution for now. You just kind of build it out just so you can visually see what's the functionality that I need to design the website for. And then you'll take that across to ChatGPT and just start explaining, hey, I want to build a website that has this functionality. Here's all the different stages that website needs to have. Here's the buttons that it needs to have. And then you can ask ChatGPT to help just design a page or a couple of pages for you, mainly to be used as inspiration so that you can actually just plug them into Replit later on and tell the Replit agent, hey, design the website for me. Here is this visual inspiration for you to kind of copy off. And then in Replit, we'll just be building out all the rest of the code using that agent as well. For this video, I'm not going to be building out the workflow from scratch. I'm actually going to be going step by step. So I'm going to be building out the webhooks, and then building the first screen, and then building the second set of functionality. So from wait node to wait node, and then building out the second screen, and then kind of going piecemeal through this process. Because that's actually the way that I built out this first workflow. It was a bit more tedious, but it was a lot easier for me to just follow along with the data that I was sending between those two platforms. So since I already know how I want my app to look, pretty much based off that app that I showed in the first video and just earlier in this video, I know that I want to be able to upload a file. I want to send some information across to n8n, and then maybe have one or two kind of functional steps. So upload a file is one step, and then possibly press the buttons or return some free text is another step. So I just went across to ChatGPT and I just approached it very in plain language. So I started off by explaining roughly what I wanted the app to do. I'm not designing a page here. I'm first just building a generic design of a page. So it was less important for me to say, hey, build out the first page or build out the second page that has these functions. I was more so just saying, build a design. So I put some basic requirements in this first message, and then I had this kind of image sent back to me. So again, it's just a very generic, it's not even a page, it's just kind of like an icon. But I did like the simple colors. I liked that it had this new request button. It kind of just looked modern and clean. So I was very happy with this, but you would kind of keep iterating in this chat until you get some kind of generic page that you're happy with. And actually one thing that I've done before when I'm building out these custom interfaces is I go to the client's website and I either just upload the website into ChatGPT and say, hey, build me a claims portal that is using this style from this website. Or you can just take screenshots of the client's website and just say, hey, build it that looks like this. And the main thing you want to do is kind of copy across the color codes that they're using, the same fonts and stuff like that, so that when their customers interact with their page, this claims portal, it doesn't look completely isolated. It actually looks like it was part of their website. So let's say that I was happy with that page. Now, the second thing that I wanted to do is just get a little bit more specific about designing my first page. So in general, I knew that I wanted my app to kind of be split into two sections. One section would show a summary of like step 1, step 2, step 3. And then the other section of the page would show that's what the user would interact with. So they can kind of see, all right, I've uploaded a file and that was step 1 complete. All right, I've got 2 or 3 more steps to go, just to kind of help with the user experience. So after I explain that main component of just splitting the page into 2, I then ask it, hey, can you please design me that first page that has to have just a start a new request. And this new request, that's what we're going to use to hit this inbound webhook, so that when the user presses start a new request, in the back end, we're just waking up that workflow. So then ChatGPT gave me a very nice first page where we have on the left-hand side the status. Then we have just a big title, AI claims portal, and new request. So that's going to be a button for us to click on. And then I asked ChatGPT to give me a technical description of that first page. And I'm just thinking I might actually use this when I'm going across to Replit and saying, here's the first page, design it like this. Here's a technical description of how that page has to look and how it functions, just so it kind of knows some more visual design elements when it's building out that page for me. So that's another hack that I do sometimes. I kind of get ChatGPT to create the page and then also accompany the page with a short description. And then I started speaking about the second page. So the second page, I described that I wanted to, pretty much what you see here, have a way for me to drag and drop a file onto the page. Or I can press a button to actually select that file, which will pop up my little Finder window on my MacBook. Has a submit button that'll be used to actually send that file across to the n8n workflow. And then on the left-hand side, I just kind of put some more statuses into here. So like workflow started when you press that first button. This yellow status is that we're actually uploading the file right now. The red status is that it's incomplete. And then the complete status should have a color as well, but I don't think I was descriptive enough over here. So as you see, ChatGPT designed that second page, and this looks really neat. It looks super clean. It's consistent with that first page. And once again, that was just based off this initial kind of design that we had here. So the consistency is really cool. And then I ended the conversation here because I think this is enough information for me to actually upload to Replit and give it enough inspiration to kind of design the rest of the website itself. Now, the next thing we need to do is start building out this web page. So you can go across to Replit. If you don't have an account, I'll leave my affiliate link below. So you can use that to create your account. But there's 2 key ways that you can actually interact with Replit. The first is in a very similar way to how you would interact with something like Lovable. So if you've heard of this is basically a full-blown agent that you just prompt up using plain language, and it creates all the files for the app for you, and it kind of manages all the files in the backend by itself. So you don't have to go and create a new file, add a new file, plug files together. It actually runs that entire process for you. So you can do the same thing by using the Replit agent, which is just literally this tab over here. But I don't actually like using the Replit agent. I want some more control over the entire process. So we're going to be building out using the standard agent, which is going across to the top left corner, clicking on create app. We're going to go to choose a template, and we're going to choose node.js. Now, node.js is just a pre-built template for how you build an app that you can publish online. And I use Node.js specifically because I code in JavaScript. So I'm very familiar with JavaScript. I know that we can build this web page that has these custom actions and functions. We can have buttons, we can do file upload, we can do all that stuff using JavaScript. So we're just going to be using this Node.js app. So just looking over here, we have this agent panel, which is very similar to something like ChatGPT. We can use the Claude 4 Sonnet model, which is the best model for coding right now, and actually the best model for design. And then on the right-hand side, this is where we see the code that we're writing. So right now we have the index.js file. It's completely blank. But then if I click this button on the side, it's going to open up all the files for the app. So this is going to look a little bit intimidating if this is the first time you're seeing it. Don't worry about it. All you need to know about and just kind of consider is this index.js file. This is the main file for the app. It's like the office of the business. This is where all the main configuration files are going to be stored. And all we're going to do is create one more file called the index.html. And that's going to be that page that we publicly see on a website that we can interact with. And then basically using these two pages, we'll be able to build out this entire app that'll be able to communicate with n8n. Okay, so one file that I am going to give you guys is basically a high-level explanation of what we're building out and some key requirements and key learnings that I've made along the way of building that first app. And this is a project.md file. MD just means it's in markdown format, so project.markdown. And we're going to upload this into Replit, and it's going to give us the initial explanation of what we want to build and how to structure this. So you can download this from my Gumroad. I'm going to have a link in the description of this video. And it explains to your Replit agent exactly like what we're doing and how this has to be built out. It's LLM ready, which means it's made to be read by your AI agent in Replit or any of your AI coding tools that you're going to be using. So it's going to have a lot of information just to kind of simplify this process for us. So I'm going to get that file and just load it into here, project.md. Once again, you just download that from my Gumroad and then just plunk it into here. So if I open this now, the same thing that I just saw before in that other kind of browser tool. Let me just open this a little bit wider. It's the same set of instructions. So I'm just going to ask the agent to read this in a second. And my preference, by the way, is to kind of bring this AI step on the right-hand side and then have the code stuff on the left-hand side. Now I'm just going to say, please read the project.md file and let me know when you're ready to proceed. So now the AI is going to read that file. It's going to start understanding what we're building, what are the constraints and restrictions, what are the rules that it has to follow when it's building. Awesome, so it's summarized all that stuff on the right-hand side. Now the next thing I want to start doing is going back into ChatGPT. I'm just going to download this page and then this next page so I have it ready. And now I'm saying, please create that index.html file. Let's start with designing the app. And here's how that first section should look. I'm just going to drop in that first page from ChatGPT. And I'm also going to take this description and then paste it into here. So let's hit enter. And now the agent's going to be looking at that page to understand the design that we want to go for, read these technical requirements of that first page. And now it's just going to go ahead and code up the public/index.html. So it's showing public / here because we need to put another folder into here that's called public. And in that public folder, we are going to be using this index page. This is a very common way to template when you're building out apps. And since we have that in this description over here, so the project main project file has this backend office that runs all the main stuff for the app. Then we have a folder. The public folder contains the public files we want the front end to see. So now a cool thing about Replit is that we can literally just click through and install all these requirements. These requirements are all just like, imagine you're in a kitchen and you want to cook a recipe. If you want to make a smoothie, you need a blender. If you want to make a cake, you need an oven. So this is basically a recipe. The index.html and index.js files, they're recipes for us. And in order for us to run them in this Node Express kitchen, we just need to get those extra appliances. So I've installed those appliances into my environment. And then the next thing I want to do is apply the changes to Node index.js. And actually, I think I could have just done apply all. Sorry, yeah. I could have just done apply all and it would make all those changes for me. So just next time I'll do that. Now on the left-hand side, we should see, there we go. The public folder was created. The index.html was created here as well. And here we have that first page. So this is just now a demo preview. To go back to the agent step, I'm still here with the chat open. It's able to read all the files that it's creating. And then we have this preview, which I can press this button and kind of just see what happens. But right now it's not plugged into my n8n. Now back on this left-hand side portal. So I just clicked index.html and this is the contents of that page. And if I go down to index.js, here is that index file. But previously it was fully empty, but now basically Claude has just given us a starter piece of code to start working with. So the next step is for us to go into n8n and just establish that connection with the webhook. So we want to get a webhook into here. Let's go webhook. And I want to copy this address. And actually, I'm going to change this from a get to a post. Now, a post method just means that it's just a different way of interacting with this URL. So sometimes you can receive calls, you can make calls, You can delete things, you can update things. So this is just one of the ways that we interact with it, and post is a very common method. And I'm going to click here to copy this webhook URL. It is in test mode, and that's great because now I want to execute workflow. So now this is going to be open, waiting to basically receive the event from that front end. So I'm going to go back to the assistant and say the webhook URL for n8n, the one that we just created. This is the URL that we're going to be targeting, and can you please connect it to the button? Now let's hit enter. And now the agent's going to go off. It's going to update the files that it needs to update. So probably will update the index.js file. And then it's going to add everything. Let's see here. We have some, okay, yeah. So it's going to add all that stuff to the files once we click apply. A cool note that I want to make is make sure your n8n workflow is configured to respond with a JSON object containing the resume URL. So this, by the way, is from that project MD file. One of the steps that I said here is whenever you're making a call out to n8n, so the trigger that goes to n8n, we always want to receive this kind of payload from n8n back. And then this is what we use to actually process the next stuff for the front end. So I've already done this for you. So you have some instructions here that you can follow. Let's click apply. So I'm not going to get that respond to webhook node yet. Let's just get this very first step done. Okay, so we have this preview ready. Now, if I click this, it should actually hit off to my n8n scenario. And back in n8n, executed successfully. Let's open this up. We've got no information here anyway, but okay. So the action is start claims process. So this is literally from Replit. Within 2 prompts, we now have some connection between that front end and now this n8n scenario. So the next thing we want to do is actually respond with a webhook node. So back into here, we're going to go to respond and change this to respond with webhook node. And that means that when we initially get that call from Replit, when we're pressing the button, instead of immediately responding back saying, yep, we received it, we actually want to receive something here. We then want to delay it until this webhook node, which means we can now pack in some other information, which is that resume URL, and then send it back to Replit. So that's going to be here. Let's go respond to webhook. And then we want to create a JSON object. So JSON, and it's going to be expecting something like this. I'm just going to copy this and paste it into here. And this thing has to be dynamic. And to make it dynamic, it's going to be an expression, and it's going to be double squiggly bracket. We're going to get the $ and go execution resume URL. That's a capital U. And then we're going to go double squiggly bracket to close it. So now we have this dynamic variable, which is going to be pulling in that resume URL, which is going to give us the address of that wait node. So now let me just close this. And just to get this next step right, so the next thing we want to do is actually test that this thing works. So we're going to first make the call from Replit into here. We're going to get that resume URL. We're going to respond back. And then I want to have a wait node that I can actually target and just make sure that Replit is communicating with that wait node as well. So to do that, let's go into here. Let's type in wait. We get the wait node. And now we're going to go to resume and just go on webhook call. And then we have with the HTTP method, but we're just going to go to post. Basically, this is saying that, hey, when we interact with this wait node, the Replit side has to make a post request. It's not a get, it's nothing else. If we make a get from Replit and this is thinking it gets a post, it's going to deny that call. Now, just like before with the initial webhook node, we are going to change this to respond with webhook because like I discussed over here, when we're receiving that information into n8n, we need to run some actions first and then actually have the front end wait for us to then receive the information back in. So when we press the button on the front end, it's technically just in that loading phase, waiting for n8n to finish before it closes the door because it's received the information. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as immediately because we just want to test this out. All right, so let's close this. And now my next instruction is to create that second page. So I'm basically saying, okay, I've updated n8n to respond initially with that resume URL as instructed. I've then added the first wait node into my n8n canvas just so it knows exactly what we're doing, what step we're up to. Can you now design the second section, which is a file upload section? I've popped in that file that we had from ChatGPT, and I'm just re-explaining. I want to upload an image. I've uploaded an image for inspiration for you to copy off. And note the updated left-hand side panel. That left-hand side panel, it's pointless for me to explain this, but just to let you know, initially the status was kind of blank like this. And then on the second iteration for the page, we actually added the different stages for our workflow. So I'm just communicating with Replit just to let it know, hey, the status bar is updated, so just make sure it's consistent. And yeah, I want to be able to drag a file or click a button to upload a file, and then I want a submit button. So I'm going to send this across, and now we should be getting an updated code created into our index.html page. Okay, so it looks like the agent has made those updates. Now, before I press this blue button and apply it to the index.html file, I want to explain this bit over here. So there's actually something that we have to be very mindful of when we're building this app. One of the other reasons we're using this Node app is because we need that index.js file in the backend to be able to make the API calls to n8n. So when we're responding to the webhooks or getting information from the webhook, it has to go through this index.js file. Now we also have this index.html. There is actually a version of Replit where we can just say we want to make a basic HTML page, and we're allowed to actually, build that and make it and launch it to the website. The only thing is that we run into this thing called CORS, cross-origin something policy, something like that. But it basically is that if we make the API call from the index.html page, the front end website, we make it across to n8n, so like the webhook call, we're not allowed. We have to, it's like a security policy that n8n just denies by default. And if we want to basically be able to make those calls from the index page, we have to go into our n8n configuration, change the CORS policy, CORS, to allow for, that's this thing here, to allow for the API calls from the front end from that index.html file. But because I don't want us to deal with this policy, we just want to be as secure as possible, we make all those calls from index.js. So it's explained in this LLM ready instruction set, but this is just so you know what's happening. So I'm going to click apply. It's going to make the changes across to this index.html page. And while we're speaking about security, it's also a really good idea to secure your webhooks. So in this video, I'm not authenticating any of these requests. I've actually got another video that I'll link below, which speaks about how to add security to your webhooks. It basically uses one of these different security headers, which just means that you need to have this like password when you're making the call from your app across to n8n. You have this login password, so to speak, which is just like this key that if you don't have that key, you cannot unlock this webhook and you cannot access this workflow. So that's like another security measure. I'll link that video below. You guys can go into it, but for now we're just using none. So it's pretty much open to anyone. Okay, looks like our agent has updated the workflow. So I'm just expanding out the screen because as we saw, it was kind of double stacked. That's a cool thing as well because Replit just automatically will, like it's a responsive design. So even though the screen was too small to actually have two panels for a nice user interface, it stacks it. So that's already embedded in the code. Otherwise, it's going to show on the left-hand side. So for us to execute this again and just test out what we're doing, I've opened up our workflow to be able to receive the event for that first webhook. Let's start the process and click on new request. So we should receive, okay, awesome. So we've started the workflow. We're on the file upload stage. And nice, now in n8n, we can see that we've got the start button that processed this webhook. We responded back with the resume URL. So now let's make sure by uploading a file, when we upload the file that it comes back into this wait node. So the wait node is waiting exactly like it should be. I'm just gonna drag and drop that same JB Hi-Fi invoice that we had before. So now it looks like it's uploaded into here. I'm just gonna hit submit and see what happens. So uploading, and I think now it's gonna be waiting for a response. Okay, so a file uploaded successfully. Okay, but nothing actually came into here. So now we have some issue that we're not actually sending that file across to this wait node. So let's investigate what happened. I'm just gonna go across to this console over here. And the console typically has like it just basically gives like a string of information about what's happening in your workflow. So if you ever wanna put like a paper trail of where you're going and what's happening in your workflows, you can kind of track and say, okay, step 1 was successful, step 2 was successful, step 3 failed. You would do that process in the console, but I'm gonna try and keep this video pretty high level. And I'm just gonna copy this because it looks like there was an error over here. So error resuming workflow, cannot find module form data. So I think that just means that when we built the second step, we didn't actually do some other configuration for our app. So I'm just gonna paste it into here. And now the agent should be able to understand based on these logs, what failed in the app, and then hopefully give us a debugging resolution. Okay, so it looks like the resolution was to install one of these dependencies, so form data. And once again, dependency is like that extra appliance you need for the kitchen. So this should be working for us. I'm gonna go back to our preview. I'm just gonna restart this. I'm gonna go stop all workflows. I'm gonna hard stop it and then press the run button again to just rerun. Basically, since we uploaded that next dependency, I just wanted to refresh the workflow so that dependency is active. So back in n8n, let's just stop this and let's restart. So now we're waiting for that initial button. New request. Awesome, workflow is started. Let's confirm here. Yep, it's on the wait node. Let's drag that invoice onto the canvas. Let's hit submit and let's go across to n8n and let's see if it hits this wait node. Awesome. Okay, so we've got something on this wait node. And now inspecting the data, it actually doesn't look like we have any file sent across into here. So I'm just going to copy this and go back into Replit and let's see if it can help us figure this out. And I'm just going to say, thank you, that worked. So we actually were able to respond back to that wait node. There was no binary file sent, and just binary file just means that we have some kind of document that we can access on the n8n workflow. Here is the JSON payload received, and this is what I just copied across from n8n. I'm just going to upload this and let's see if it can figure it out. Okay, so it looks like we have some resolution here. Basically, it's saying that when we're uploading the file, it's not transferring from the index.html when we're pressing the file upload button. It's not going to the index.js. And like I mentioned before, index.js is what sends the information to n8n. So there is just no bridge between these two. Hopefully it's fixed this issue. Let's apply it and then we'll restart the preview for us. Okay, so the preview is ready. Let's now restart this and hopefully it works this time. So let's go to new request. Okay, it's ready. Let's make sure. Yep, we're in the wait node. Let's upload this receipt, this invoice. Let's hit submit. And now in n8n, let's see if we get that binary file. Let's open this up. Okay, so it seems like once again, no binary file. Okay, so I got it working. Now I had to go through a couple of more back and forth debugging with the AI. Basically what I found was that when we were uploading the file from index.html, we were uploading them into this little uploads folder. And then when we went to the index file to send across to n8n, there was an issue kind of pulling the file from the uploads. This is not so important because I've now figured out that instead of using a middleman uploads folder, we will directly send that file into index.js. The learning that I made here, I now got the AI to update the project.md file. So this is what you would download from my Gumroad, and it's going to have the updated information about how to send files. So you're not going to have this exact same issue. There's no point me going through the troubleshooting here. But yeah, now you're going to have the working version of the file. So let's preview this. Let's go back into n8n. Let's execute the workflow. Okay, and now let's go to create a new request. Awesome. Now we have the upload section. Let's drag and drop the invoice. Let's hit submit. And now back in n8n, we should get that file into this wait node. Cool. Let's open it up and let's view this file. And that is the invoice. Awesome. So now we're up to this section here. We have these n8n actions in the middle. And again, what we need to do is use the respond to webhook node. So that means now that eventually down the line, we need some respond to webhook node. I'm just going to install it here for us. Respond to webhook. And let's just extend it out over here. And for this wait node, let's immediately put it to respond with webhook node. And now we can put some kind of stuff in between here in the middle. So let's just put an AI step to help us analyze that image. So open AI and let's do analyze image. Let's go to ChatGPT 4.0. I'm just going to say list the products in this invoice. Let's change this to binary files. And this is called file. So let's paste it into here. Let's just try this step. So we're going to execute it, which means it's going to pull in this invoice, which is for that MacBook Pro. Okay, sorry, I couldn't actually execute it like that. So I just need to start this process again. I'm just going to go on execute workflow. Let's restart this process. I'm going to go on run. Okay, let's click on new request. Let's upload our invoice, click submit. Let's go back into n8n. We should see the file drop into here and then be processed by this analyze image step. So let's see what products were on there. Products listed in the invoice were a MacBook Pro, 3-year care plan, and then a USB-C adapter. Okay, awesome. So now I'm just going to put another step into here just to show us this process and get an AI agent step. I'm going to feed in the output of the previous step, which pulled in the contents of the invoice. Let's bring it into the user message dynamically. And now for our system message, I'm just going to use these instructions. So generate a summary of the invoice contents in 2 sentences, and then list the products and don't include anything that has to do with the warranty. Output your response in a JSON format with these 2 keys, so the summary and then the products. Now let's add a chat model. I'm just going to use OpenAI, and we don't need any tools for this. So I can just press run and it should be able to pull in the data from the previous step. Awesome. So we have the output over here. So summary, the invoice includes the purchase of a MacBook Pro, and then a 3-year care package. And then for the products, it has MacBook Pro and USB-C adapter. So now another cool thing I was doing in my original workflow was that after the agent step, I had a code block, and that code block was used to actually build the JSON packet of information that we're sending back in the webhook. So I didn't do any of that in the webhook. In the webhook, I just said pass through all incoming items. And since we have a code block, we're able to write custom code to actually do all the jazzy stuff for us. So all I'm going to do is go and add a code block into here. And now let's go on through this JSON format. This is the previous node that we're working with. I'm just going to ask ChatGPT to write me a code node for n8n, which has to process the response from that AI agent step. So I just copied it directly into here. And it must give me an output with the JSON keys of summary, product, and resume URL. And resume URL we're going to get from that original node that we had, which is once again just the variable from n8n. So to make it easy for me to get that, I'm just going to go to this respond webhook node. I'm just going to copy this and then paste it over here. And now we should have the code block contents that we can just paste directly into n8n. Awesome, so we have that ready. Let's go back into our code node. Now let's remove all this stuff and paste it into here. And just so we know, this bit is what ChatGPT normally gets wrong. So all I'm going to do is just copy this into here. So now that should give us what we want it to give us. Let's execute this step and hopefully it's going to give us the right output on the other side. So let's click on JSON, summary, product, and resume URL. Perfect, and it passes it through properly. Okay, awesome. So now let's copy this and let's just configure this to respond to webhook with all incoming items. So basically this packet of info is going to be plugged right into this webhook and sent back to Replit. I'm just instructing our Replit agent that once the file is uploaded to n8n, we get the response in this format. So I've just copied that from that code node. And then I want to show the summary of the from the response to the user. I'm not going to say where, I'm just going to let the AI decide. And I want to get the products and turn them into dynamic buttons. So if there's 2 products or 5 products, I want to show them as buttons on the front end. The user will then click on some of those buttons and press submit. And then the responses of those buttons will be sent across to n8n. So let's submit this and let's see what the agent gives us. Okay, awesome. Looks like we've made those changes to the index.html and index.js. Let's apply all and click OK. Awesome. So let's test this out now. Going to go back into here, click on execute workflow, and back in our front end, click on new request, upload our invoice, click submit, and it should be landing into this wait node. Let's give it a second. There we go. Now we're processing the invoice to pull out the products. We're plugging them into our AI agent step. We've created our JSON object and plugged it back in as a respond to webhook. And then on our front end, awesome. So invoice summary, the invoice includes a MacBook Pro and some other items. Select products. I'm just going to go for MacBook Pro and submit selection. So actually we don't have anything happening over here right now. I'm just going to add another wait node. And for the wait node, once again, webhook call. Let's change this to post. And let's just go, actually, let's go, instead of respond immediately, let's go respond using webhook node. And now let me just generate a response for our front end. So I'm going to go webhook again, respond to webhook. And now I'm just going to say JSON and I'm going to say response. And I'm just going to say successful. Let's copy this. Let's leave this and go on execute workflow. And since this is working for us right now, let's go back to the assistant step. And to end our workflow, I'm just going to say the final response you get after that step. So after you're submitting your product, it's going to have this kind of response structure. And if it's successful, so it's successful, just display your claim was submitted message successfully. And if it's unsuccessful, so this message says unsuccessful, display an error message. Let's hit enter. And now in n8n, the way that you would actually make that happen is you might have some other logic here that does some checks, and then you would just have a route that would show if the checks were successful, you just route to this webhook. If they were not successful, maybe you have another webhook or another process. But that's how we would end our workflow. Okay, awesome. So we've got the changes ready. Let's click apply. We'll apply those changes. Okay, restarting the app. So our n8n scenario is waiting and ready. Let's upload our file, click submit, and let's see what's happening here. Let me just zoom out. Okay, we'll get that file in just a second. Cool, processing the products. Now we're processing our dynamic button. We're responding with the webhook node. Cool, we have the summary. And now I'm just gonna choose this and submit selection. And it was success. Okay, so it finished very quickly. So we had the response come into here. Let's just go down. So we had selected products, MacBook Pro. So once again, you would just build out whatever steps you want in between here. And since this is its own variable, so selected products, you would just drag and drop this into your next steps. But yeah, this ends the demo. So we've actually shown a full cycle of how to actually build out these loops where each loop represents a separate interaction on the website. Another final thing for us to do is actually deploy this so it's live online. While we're here, a couple of different cool things you could do is, this is technically going to be a public page. Once again, you want to do the security stuff for your webhooks. So in n8n, you want to go across and actually change some of your settings here so you have authentication. But another cool thing that you could do, which I'm not going to show in this video, is actually add a user sign-in or a user login here. So when you actually start this app, instead of just seeing that main blank page, which is start a new claim, you can actually have a login screen where the person has to log in with their email address and a password, and that is all run via like a Supabase database. It's like the easiest way that I found to run that system. So you can add new users, they can log in, they can check their claim, see the status, very customized to them. So you can do a lot of stuff here. But for now, we're just going to go across to deploy, and deploying this just means it's going to be available online 24/7. So I'm going to leave it on auto scale, set up deployment. I'm going to leave all the standard configuration settings, approve and build this file. So for now, our URL is going to be this, but after we deploy this, you'll be able to change your domain. So you can change your domain to basically point from bart.com / claims portal. So you can actually just, if you have a custom domain, you can just point this page to your custom domain. But for now, we're just going to leave everything as it is. Click deploy, and we should be able to deploy this in a matter of seconds. So there you go. It's literally building all the technical, complicated stuff in the back end for us. And in just a moment, it should be done and ready to go. And there we go. So that took us about 3 minutes to deploy. And now if I just copy this URL, and now we're taken to our public claims portal. So let me just make sure that it works. Let me click on execute. And if we can hit this webhook, everything is good to go. So click on new request. And okay, so the second screen means that we're successful. And there we go, we've hit that n8n workflow. Now, one final thing is that if you do want the n8n workflow to be in production mode as well, you will have to go to the production URL. You'll have to copy this and you'll have to save this workflow and turn it to active. And that means that now your n8n workflow will be able to be accessible by the website at any time. And then you'll have to go back to your assistant. You'll have to say, here's the updated URL for the webhook in n8n. Once it updates the files, you can just go into here and click redeploy. It'll take another couple of minutes and will push those changes live. So every time you make some edits to your agent in the back end, make sure you always hit redeploy. All right, guys, and that's all I have for you. If you want to see more coding videos like this, if you watch to the end, please drop a comment below and I'm happy to make more of these kind of technical videos to help you improve your skills. All right, see you on the next one.